Welcome to another edition of the Walker Valley Football Coaches Show. Here with head coach Drew Akins. I'm Andy Morris, here with Jacob Mason as well. We're sponsored by Solutions Finance and Wholesale Supply Group. It is Bradley Week, a lot to be excited about. The Mustangs, newly ranked number 6 in the Tennessee Football AP State Rankings. Coach Akins, before we dive into Bradley, we're going to touch on last week a little bit. Big win against Notre Dame High School, 37-0. Let's go ahead, recap that a little bit. How did you feel about last week's game?
Yeah, just kind of off the hoof. I thought our defense played really well. I think obviously anytime you hold somebody to 0, your defense played really well. But when you go back and watch it, we played really well. Our D-line, obviously, Miles Mann had a great game. But our linebackers did a great job. They didn't have anything in the pass game. So we did a great job there. And then anytime you win the turnover battle 5-0, it's a big deal. So, getting 4 defensive turnovers and then, Bryce Kohler recovering the punt that was muffed. That's a big momentum shift. And it was definitely a huge reason why we were able to win the way we did. So anytime you can goose egg somebody, it's good. And then, offensively, I thought we threw the ball well, played well receiver. We need to run the ball a little bit better, and that's something we've worked on throughout this week. But I think if we can catch our run game up, we got a pretty good chance to be explosive on offense too.
So if you can goose egg anybody, that means a wing party. We know that.
Yeah, it's a shutout party.
So that's some incentive.
So I love some shutout parties, man. We get to go have some wings today after practice, so it's gonna be awesome.
Guys love that. That's pretty cool. So real quick, offensive side of the ball, Ryan Lay was player of the week. He was 12 for 19 with 174 yards, 2 touchdowns through the air, and 2 rushing as well. Coach, Ryan, debut as a starting quarterback looked pretty good.
Yeah, we always knew Ryan was talented. We talked about how talented he was last week. He's always had great arm talent, and when you look at him in comparison to the guys we've had in the past, his arms are stronger than anybody we've ever had. But what he did the other night so well is that when we made a mistake or there was a bad play, he just kind of played the next play. So we're really proud of what Ryan did, coming in. First time as a starter now. I think we talked about last week is him starting at safety last year really kind of gave him the feel of Friday nights. I think if that was his first start ever, under Friday Night Lights, I think there would have been more nerves. I think he would have been more anxious. I think there would have been more emotions. But for him to be able to play all year last year at safety and then move into a quarterback role, the lights didn't scare him at all. So it was nice to see that. He controlled those emotions and obviously played really well. I think 12 of 19, but I think 2 of those were drops. So even that, you go up to 14 and 19, you probably add a few more yards, you get up to
a couple of those
yards.
Incompletions were not bad incompletions either. He was thrown in the traffic and he put it where no one could get it.
Exactly. So really proud of the way he played. And then, what I was probably most proud of throughout the night was that last run, where he kind of bullied his way into the end zone. Because the first run he didn't. It was like, Ryan, you got to get in there. There's a hole there. I see it. And you're tippy-toe through it. And we scored the next play, and that's fine. But I said, hey, man, get in the first time. And then we came back and ran it in the second half, that first drive of the second half. And he just kind of bullied his way in, and that was good to see.
Yeah, for sure.
So before we let Jacob take it with defense, he's ready. I know he's itching to talk about defense. We saw some other guys get some action on offense. Cole Harbison had an impact on the game. Spencer Jackson. Talk about some contributors on the offensive side of the ball.
Yeah, I think, like I said, I think our receivers played really well. Cole obviously had a lot of receiving yards. Gibby had some receiving yards, and Charda had some receiving. We had 4 guys over 40 yards receiving. So, being able to get the ball to several different players and still be explosive. Kyler Paris had several catches. I think he had around 30 yards receiving. So that 174 yards that Ryan had were spread out over, 4 or 5 guys, and that makes it really difficult to defend, especially when we're 4 wide and we're spreading the field 53 and a third wide. You've got to be able to, you got to lean your defense somewhere. And when they lean it one way, we can go back and throw it to Gibby, or they lean it this way and we can go back and throw it to Cole, or move Cade around to where we need him to be successful. So, Spencer went out early just with a little ankle thing. I think it scared him more than anything. I think, we held him a little bit, but he came back in and played the second half, had some good power runs. That's what I wanted to see. I said, hey, you're not going to get a whole lot here, but I need you to see power here. So he came back in and had some really nice power runs and then caught a screen as well. So, Spencer's always going to be impactful, and he's always going to be a part of our game plan. But really what I was proud to see is our receivers. And, we got a lot of experience at receiver, a lot of guys that have played a lot of football there. So we're going to lean on them throughout this year, but especially this week.
That's a trend we like to see, that we're starting to see from your offenses, so that's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
For sure. So let's go to my favorite part, the defense. Miles Mann was player of the week. 7.5 tackles, 5 tackles for loss, and 1.5 sacks. I joked around. I called into the radio show. Got kicked off by this guy. I don't know if you heard that. They called in like, hey, Coach Akins wants to call. And I was like, wait, let the main man talk. But Miles Mann, I said he basically pitched a tent back there, man. He was living in the backfield, and it was really fun to see. Kind of talk about his performance and then also the defensive performance.
Yeah, we kind of talked about it after the game, and I had hoped that it was, play within our scheme and be successful. That's kind of what we said. But sometimes you go to film and be like, he didn't really play within the scheme. But luckily, we went back to the film, and he did. He did exactly what we coached him to do. And, man, did he see some success from it. So, really nice to see that out of Miles. That's something that we've preached him over and over. He's a great pass rusher, 100%. He is right on the level of a dominant pass rusher at the high school level, especially with his speed and his athleticism. Makes him really hard to block, but him playing within our scheme and having 5 tackles for loss in the run game, that's a big deal. And I hope he saw that success from doing what we coached him to do, and really that progresses throughout the year, and he just does what he's supposed to do all the time. And if he does, man, he's going to see a ton of success, or teams are going to have to change their scheme for him, which is going to open up Eli and Judah and Kyler to make tackles too. So defensively as a whole, man, I like I said to open, anytime you can pitch a shutout, that we could have won with them by themselves, because Miles also had a fumble recovery for a touchdown. So, I mean,
a forced fumble, a fumble recovery.
Yeah, and those are two separate plays.
Yeah,
it's a forced fumble where Kyler Parrish recovered it, and then Tucker Owenby forced another fumble that Miles recovered and scored on. So
his presence was known.
Yeah, we could have won, just with them playing, not scored a point on offense, and that's a big deal. As an offense coordinator, it gives you, be able to relax a little bit.
Another person on the defensive line we talked about on the radio show Friday night was Van Wyck. The center was having trouble snapping the ball, and I would have to say that it's because he was feeling the pressure of Van Wyck. He was kind of an unsung hero just because he was doing his job, man. He was getting after the quarterback. I feel like as a whole we've brought a defensive culture here that is now like 11 guys. And so talk about some of the secondary guys. I know they didn't get a whole lot of action just because it was a no-fly zone, but also because you had guys like Van Wyck and Miles Mann living in the background. Just tell us about with the secondary, what we're going to expect this week and all those kind of things.
Yeah, I think, that we got players all over the field. We got so much depth at that position. We had the transfer with Deshaun Sims, who has an Austin Peay offer and is a really good football player, man. We see him progressing. He didn't play at all last year anywhere. Had a knee injury, and he's 2 years away from football. The speed of the game is a little different. You have to get back in it. But you're starting to see him start to get comfortable with the speed of the game. So it's been fun to watch him. But then Spencer Jackson is probably our best defense player, instinctive-wise. He just knows where the ball's going. He has this knack for just being around the football. But I'll tell you the one that's kind of came on, and we talked about him last week, man. But Brady Montgomery, what he's done in our secondary and his – man, when he comes downhill, he's coming downhill.
He grits his teeth.
Yeah, it's been really fun watching him progress and, become a big-time varsity player on Friday nights. And, he's on our special teams. He was an honorable mention special teams player of the week, just doing his job all the time. But, man, when he gets places, he gets there with some violence, and that's good to see. At corner, we just got a bunch of dudes, man. We got Gio Angelis, who's done a great job coming out first year, but he just plays the ball so well. Braxton Smith, sophomore, he's going to make great plays. He's going to make mistakes, and you just kind of live in that world. You saw 2 mistakes he's made. You letting the ball behind him, but you also saw some great plays by him. So, throughout the preseason, we've seen him make plays all over the field. And then guys behind that with Dre Finley and Amarian Bullocks and Will Marler, and it's just
you had a great rotation of guys getting reps last week.
Name after name after name, man, and just so proud of our defensive staff and what they've kind of built with this program.
So moving over to special teams, you talked about Brady Montgomery already, had a big night on defense and special teams, but also special teams player of the week was Eli Wilson. Eli was 3 for 3 on extra points and 1 for 1 on field goals.
And I'll tell you what, man, we don't kick a whole lot of field goals around here.
Yeah.
So to see that from Eli, first time under the lights, and for him to go out there and just hit through, and also had a touchback that I forgot to mention on that. But 3 for 3 on extra points, was very comfortable there. And then obviously the field goal is something we just don't kick field goals very often.
It's good to know
so
that you
nice
have
to
that
know
option.
we can.
Yeah.
Exactly. Nice to know we can. He's very consistent. He's got a strong leg. Just been really proud of what he's done.
Coach, also we talked about your scout team. Talk about the guys, players of the week on your scout team.
Yeah, the scout team's one of those things that we're always trying to push our guys towards. We always say, hey, man, everyone on our football team is important, whether you play on Fridays or not. And the reason for that is because it takes everybody to prepare. Everyone has to help us prepare. And I thought, our scout team guys with Nolan Chabelle, who I think is one of the toughest kids on our football team. He's scout team running back, Eli and Kyler and Judah, and all these guys are hitting him constantly. He just gets back up and just fights them and gives them a great look every week, and always proud of Nolan. Our 2 defensive ends last week had to play a scheme that they don't play. That we teach one technique, but had to do a different technique, and it took the first play, they messed it up, and after that, they did exactly what we needed them to.
Awesome.
That's the look we need, and it's 2 freshmen, with Eli Cross and Jack Shantz, that really kind of propelled us to be able to do the things we did on Friday night. Those are awards that we love giving. I think the bottom 3 awards with the Scout O, the Scout D, and then the Scholar Athlete is obviously something that we pay a lot of attention to, with Cade winning Scholar Athlete of the Week, and I think Cade is just a great model for our program.
That's Cade Charda.
Cade Charda, I think he's just an outstanding just model for our program. It's somebody we want to put out with Walker Valley on his chest, and he represents us so well. So proud of those guys. We love recognizing things that nobody else sees, because that's what that is. Everybody saw Ryan, everybody saw Miles, everybody saw Eli. But not everybody saw those 3 guys, and those 3 guys are, 4 guys really are who kind of do things behind the scenes to help us win on Fridays.
Awesome, Coach. So that's our recap of Week 1, the 37-0 win over Notre Dame of Chattanooga. We'll be right back after this short break to talk about Bradley Week. Welcome back to the Walker Valley Football Coaches Show, sponsored by Solutions Finance and Wholesale Supply Group. I'm Andy Morris here with Walker Valley head football coach Drew Akins and my good friend Jacob Mason. Coach, it's Bradley Week. It's a big deal. It's a crosstown rivalry. Bradley last week, just to touch on them a little bit, played Brainerd at UTC because their turf field at Bradley is not finished yet. And kind of had their hands full early along and ended up breaking away late third quarter, fourth quarter with a 33-6 victory over Brainerd. Kind of, what's your mindset going into this week, Coach?
Yeah, there's been a lot of talk about last year and kind of what happened last year, the way it happened last year, being up 21-0 and then letting that thing kind of trickle back, and then the fourth quarter where it was just a heavyweight boxing match. It's been a lot of conversation of, hey, like, you let one go last year, what are you going to do this year to – and I've been telling people, man, when you say we let one go, you take away from what they did. They could have laid down.
They were a good football team, too.
Exactly. They were a good football team, and we didn't necessarily give it away. They just made plays where we didn't. And it was really just one quarter. That third quarter where it was like, hey, we didn't score. We had 2 turnovers. They scored on all of both turnovers. And then the fourth quarter, we kind of got it settled in and back and forth, and we just ran out of time. That's all it was. So I don't want to take away from what happened last year, but it is something where we feel like we should have won that ball game, and things that we did caused us not to win that football game. Mistakes that we made, but mentally it prepared us for this year, and it prepared us for the end of last year, and it prepared us, for the program we've become. So I take nothing away from what they did last year to come back and get us, but I think we're more mentally prepared for a game like this now. At that point last year, we hadn't been in a game like that. Not a game that mattered like that. Carnes was close, but it didn't matter. And then the 3 games we won in the middle were all blowouts.
It didn't have the intensity of this game.
There was no intensity and then the week before last year was Cannon County. Like we didn't face any adversity in our wins. So when we faced that adversity, we had to learn from that. And I feel like we've spent the last year just learning from that, and I think our kids are ready for that. So that's kind of the mentality we're taking. You've been there before now. Like last year, we hadn't been there. We'd never been there. So when we were up 21-0, you would have thought we won the Super Bowl, and then we had to play the second half. Yeah. So I think this year you've been there before. You've been up 21-0 here before. So if you get there again, man, act like it. If something happens where we're up again, act like we've been up again. Because you can't use emotion to drive you, because that emotion eventually is going to go away, and you're going to be left with cramps and not being able to mentally focus and all these other things. Emotion's not something we preach, man. Just do what you're coached to do all the time, and then play as hard as you can play. And then you'll look up at the end of the scoreboard and see what happened. So that's what we're kind of preaching to our guys.
Coach, we were having a conversation with a buddy, and we were talking about the game this week and how it's at Walker Valley. And, somebody stated that, home field advantage is probably not that big of a deal. It's our county. I think you and I think Walker Valley would beg to differ. What's the vibe around school? What's the vibe to this game? Like, how is the school, and how's the band? How's everybody doing? What's the mindset that they're going into? Kind of tell us what home field means to you. Tell us what it means about this game and what to expect for the huge showdown tomorrow night.
Yeah, I think what it is a spotlight for this county. It's a spotlight for what I believe is the best turf field in the state of Tennessee. We have things on this turf field that nobody else has. And it's going to be spotlighted in several different places. There's a crew coming in from Chattanooga. Obviously, we'll have the live stream on Walker Valley. We'll have the live stream with Steve and just
Mixed TV will be carrying the live broadcast.
So it's going to be. I really believe it's just going to be a spotlight for what's been done here. So I think that's first and foremost. It's going to show people that, hey, Walker Valley's taking football seriously.
Yeah.
Like, look at their facilities. On top of that, you start adding in, obviously, our crowd being here and our band being in the bleacher, in the end zone.
That's a huge deal.
That's a big deal. That caused, they were, Notre Dame last week returned it inside the 20 and immediately got a penalty because our band's down there playing. So it is a big deal. I've played against it. I know it's a big deal when you can't hear, you can't communicate. But, there's something about being here. I think the support you feel throughout the hallways, it's the talk of our hallways, no doubt. It's been the talk, between teachers. It's been the talk with students. It's been the talk with anybody that I pass. It's, hey, you ready for this week? And it's Tuesday, so I hope not. Now it's Wednesday, so I'm not ready yet. And now it's Thursday, so we're almost there. But, it's something that it's definitely been the talk. And I think last year we proved that we can compete. But now we got to make sure that we can continue that. We got to sustain that, because you can't just go back to where you were. A big thing that we've talked about with our team this week is, hey, you want to get out of last year's shadow? Because let's be real, last year, we're kind of in the shadow of last year's team still. Last year's team was the most wins, and it did all these great things, and rightfully so. But if you want to get out of that shadow, go do something that last year's team didn't do.
Absolutely.
And this is your opportunity for that.
Coach, I believe for sure in this series between Bradley Walker Valley, this is the most anticipated game. But if you look at Walker Valley football in general, with the exception of a couple big playoff games we had last year, this is probably one of the biggest, most anticipated games in school history.
Yeah, when you look at AP rankings, which as a head coach, I kind of lean towards Lane Kiffin's mantra in that, where it's rat poison. It's just
absolutely
something that'll kill the momentum of a team when you see that about yourself. It always creates this sense of pride that we got to make sure that we stay away from. It's one of those things. Number 6 is really cool, but it's also something where that's not our goal. Our goal is not to be number 6 in the state. So take it for what it's worth. Be proud of it for a second, and then let's move on and let's work twice as hard to get to where we actually want to be. So that's something we preach. But when we're number 6 and they're number 7, obviously it's two different. It's not like we're ranked ahead of them. There's just two different classifications. Anytime you have a top 10 matchup, it's a big deal in the state of Tennessee. You don't get a whole lot of those in the state because it's so spread out and it's different classifications. And so to have this opportunity, I think it's something we played some ranked teams last year, but we didn't play while we were ranked. So having both teams ranked, it gives it that feel of like a Saturday where, hey, you got number 2 Clemson going up against number 1 Alabama. It has that same kind of vibe where it definitely has some anticipation. We're game of the week, and I know 3 or 4 different outlets. So to be able to make some progress here and to show people kind of where we've been, we need to make sure we have a good showing.
Well, Coach, we're excited about it. I know you've got some preparations to tend to here as you get ready to go to practice, so we're going to wrap this one up for today. Once again, thank you, Head Coach Drew Akins, Jacob Mason. I'm Andy Morris. You will be able to catch the game on Fiesta 99.1. Pre-game show will start at 6 p.m. with the game broadcast starting right at 7:30. Mixed TV will also be carrying the game with Steve Hartline and Stephen Shelton, I believe, if I'm correct. Mm-hmm. And as Coach Akins said, there's a whole lot of other media outlets that will be here covering the game as well. So we're looking forward to a good one. High-powered Walker Valley offense against a strong Bradley defense is something that's being talked about. It's going to be an exciting one, and we hope you guys tune in and watch.